With this, we would move on to our next session, which would be focusing on the technology in education, the role of new age technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and blockchain technology in school education sector in India. So for this, I would like to welcome all our esteemed panelists on board. I would start off with the moderator for this session, Dipakshi Mehandru, who is the director with the Dell Technologies, looking after government affairs and public policy. Welcome, Dipakshi. Thanks for joining us. And also join me in welcoming Mr. Sudhir Kukreja, who's the co-founder and CEO, Credence International School. Hi, Mr. Sudhir. Thanks for joining us. And we also have Pratima Sinha, CEO, DSR Education Society. Welcome, Ms. Pratima. And we also have Mr. Tijay Gupta, co-founder and COO, BACHPAN and AHPS group of schools. Welcome. We are also joined by Pritam Kumar Agarwal, founder and director, Riverstone International School. Welcome, Mr. Pritam.
Thank you, Sudhir.
So with this, a very important session focusing on the technology in school education sector, need of the hour in these prevailing times of COVID-19. With this, over to you, Dipakshi.
Thank you very much, Sudhir. And thank you very much for having me here today. Very good afternoon to all my honorable panelists, as well as people who are watching us today. It's a pleasure that I have the opportunity to moderate the session today. And I just thought I'll start with a few opening remarks, and the structure mainly would be to have all of us share our opening remarks, and from there on, we can build on the discussion. Sudhir, I just wanted to check on one thing. Would the audience be able to ask questions? And should we invite questions from audience? You're on mute.
Yeah, there is an option at the end. Once we receive the question, it would be appearing on the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So on this note, and on a very, very, I would say, relevant and thoughtful topic of emerging technology, what does that really mean for education system? I'd like to start actually with some developments that happened over the last few years. In 2012, the government of India released a path-breaking policy for that time, that was ICT at school. Cut to a few months ago when the government of India released the national education policy after a long hiatus of a good 30 plus years, but a phenomenal vision and great aspiration that has been set for the entire ecosystem to follow. One common thread that we have seen across conversations, one common thread that we have seen across even across the magnitude of stakeholders in the education ecosystem has been using technology for enabling quality learning, using technology for enabling remote learning. But despite that intention being right there on the board and writing being on the wall, whether it was from schools or from teachers or from students or even from parents, perhaps I think one of the key events that really elevated how we are talking about technology in school education is something that happened this year, that is COVID-19. I'll share a couple of statistics which I think are relevant to all of us, and these might not be new to many of you who are watching the webinar today. But as per UNESCO estimates, a good 32 crore school students, 32 crore learners in India were impacted because of COVID. If we were to look at a global scale, 1 in 4 children or 1 in 4 learners who were impacted in terms of remote learning issues, in terms of disruptions caused because of school closures, were from India. And when we talk about perhaps the key tenets, if we were to look a lot of these things in parallel, I would say there are 3 key tenets that are really led to the question on, or for that matter, that has strengthened the case for technology in education. And I'll start by saying, I don't think so. I'm a very strong proponent that even the future is human and machines together. Technology is not going to replace school. Technology is not going to replace teachers, not in the next decade at least. And the three key tenets, therefore, that still face or that still stare us in the face. The first one is access. Access to the right device, access to connectivity, access to content, whether it is content in mother language, in mother tongue when we're talking about formative years, or content that is customized, that continues to be an issue. And while we thought that as a country it bothers us, over the last year, it is amply clear that even the developed countries have faced this issue. The second key point that therefore brings us to is capacity. And while we often talk about capacity building of students, technology is equally, or for that matter, the leaps and bounds with which technology is moving further. There is a massive question of building capacity in teachers who at times, who feel that they have the short end of the stick because a lot of content is being given to them, trainings are being given to them, but they also have administrative duties on the side of it. Technology for school, capacity building for school administrations. Many school administrations have also felt that there has been a challenge to adopt to the new normal. Or for that matter, there are many concerns that come alongside it, whether it is around students, data, privacy, or even just the entire capacity building issue. And let's not forget capacity building of parents, because while there might be an elite of elite classes where we have all the check marks in the ecosystem checked in, when it comes to parents, we really need to focus also on capacity building, so that is one important guiding stream when it comes to leveraging technology in good way. And the last but not the least, I would say the third key element here is the community and network effect. Very often when we talk about innovations, there might be innovations at a global scale, but they need to be relevant to the community that we operate in. They need to be relevant to the that we operate in, while making these students ready for future of work and while making these students ready participants in the globalized future that we are all headed towards. So on this note, I would open the panel to the very, very esteemed panelists who are all there and who are all eminent educationists and representatives of various important schools at the forum. I think one of the most important key question that still remains is how do we really look at the benchmarks which are not there? How do we really talk about adopting to e-learning? How do we really look at whether technology is a supportive aid or a replacement aid? And more importantly, how do we really help our students and ensure that they are not getting blocked in a box and they can think outside of it, because technology can play a role either way and it's up to the teacher. So with that, I'll open the panel with the first question. Mr. Tijay Gupta, I would love to position this question to you. And the question may be being that I was going through the AHPS profile. Of course, it's a very well-known school. I've heard about BACHPAN's ideology for a long time now. And one thing that stands out very clearly is that the motto of the schools is really to focus on personal, physical, intellectual, and emotional development of students for life. How do you really see technology enablement, playing a role when we talk about holistic development of these students, given that there is a big school of thought that is also skeptical, I would say. And in the same length, I would also, I think the people who are attending this webinar would also really like to know, how do you, when we talk about socio-emotional learnings, when we talk about these values good for life, how does that really translate into e-learning, given that schools have really gone remote in the last few months? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dipakshi. Thank you, APAC, for this opportunity. And first, I'd like to thank the APAC team, the Minister of Telangana, and our partners. It's always good to listen from such elite and well-known educationists. And I feel with the technology, Pritam ji, I met 3-4 times during this COVID. Before that, we never met. Sudhir ji, I know we have met in a couple of conferences. So first thing, technology is always good. Now we are more connected towards other people as compared to anything. So going with that, Dipakshi, talking about the holistic development, I think coming back to the question, I'll go a little in the inside story. How does technology affect or emulate child's brain development? Bigger question is that. I think because child brain is developing, and with technology, they will be able to cope up with a new kind of challenges. They will be able to open new mind, new kinds of growth, new kind of scanning, processing, whatever is coming to their way. Their brain is accepting that kind of fact. So I think with this 9 months, 8 months, I'm talking in perspective of AHPS as a BACHPAN student. Now the kids are very open towards adapting any kind of thing. Now coming to the overall development, I'm not saying about others, but what we have felt, I try to point out on those certain terms how they are doing it in our level. Technology is always good when it can be used more creatively. It should not be only limited to the classroom walls, but open to everything, open to everyone, open to parents, open to teachers, open to anything else. Dividing our classes into lessons in chapters is always fruitful. But now there is no time limitation for the teachers. They're open lessons. Teacher can discuss for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. There is no bell kind of thing. In our case, we are asking teachers not to put it 40 minutes like it was happening in school. So children are open or kids are open to ask their questions. There's no backbencher, there's no front bencher. You're not shuffling the rows. You're not managing the student. Little things have become easy. I know challenges are there. When I come to Pratima ma'am or when I come to Sudhir sir, they might say difficult for kids to adopt technology, difficult for teachers. Yes, but now as a ease life, I think overall development or the brain development is much more easy because they are open lesson sessions. Technology has compelled our teachers to execute their lesson plans with precision before school is over for the day. Earlier, we have 6 hours, 5 hours in a day, and teachers are limited to their limited sessions. Now it is not there. They are at their home. Their dining room or the drawing room has turned into a modern day classroom. They have put up, they have installed everything which is required for that. They have all the information with them also. And again, I'm saying there is no research, there is no assembly. So they are very open to new ideas and they are very open to new kind of researches. I think Pratima will agree with me. Earlier, my teachers are complaining, sir, we don't have time to go into the depth and we have these 40 minutes. You have 40 kids in the classroom. Even if I give permission to go to the order for every student, it will take my 5-7 minutes in the class. I'm issuing bus pass, I'm issuing the announcement. Now it is not there. You have that kind of time which you can use productively. Coming on to the next point, how we are tapping our student into their digital expertise, or rather than how students are tapping their digital expertise. Listen, if we have given a task or an assignment to the student, and in traditional school we have 60 minutes of period or 40 minutes of period. In these 40 minutes of period, they hardly have 5-10 minutes of computer access. They don't have their phone, they don't have their tablet, they don't have any kind of information, and even they don't have their parents at home. Only source is the teacher. Again, how the teacher is going to help them out. Now, with digital enrollments, with digital tapping, they have their smartphone, they have their tablet, they have their classroom section, they have their parents also. A teacher might not be able to make them understand about the topic, but a parent can always do that kind of thing. So I think that is again a part of their development. Technology has not only revolutionized our relationship with information in the real world, and I think information is flowing at anywhere and everywhere. So that information kind of thing is always there. Now students are real with their projects. Whatever they are doing at their home or the projects are given to them, they are pretty much real. And now I think the parents has taken the responsibility of becoming a teacher. We as a school always have a complaint that parents are not supporting the kids, parents don't give the time to the kids, they are not checking their homework, they are not checking their classwork. I don't know what teacher are teaching in the class. That is a complaint of the parent. Now you have the authority as a parent. I think your child social development, physical development, except sports, I'm saying, all other things are lying 75 or 80% in the court of parent and 20% in the court of teacher or the school. I'm not denying the fact that I'm going beyond my responsibility, that it is not my responsibility. But now, as a perceived value, we can understand how difficult it is for the parent, how difficult it is for the teacher to cope up with these kind of challenges. I think now schools are working not only with the kids, they are working with families. We have entire family in the classroom. As a parent, I can see when my child is studying, me, my wife, her sister, her brother is always there to assist. Now, whatever she is learning or he is learning, we are also getting that kind of information what is happening in the classroom. Based on that observation, I think we can give assignment or we can task out the kids challenges and we can work out or figure out what exactly would be happening in the classroom. So for me, I think social, intellectual, or the development phase, or we can say cognitive, physical, yes, I'm doubting how physical development is going to happen because children are bound to be at home. There are no sports activity. There are nothing happening. Maybe I think we have Pritam ji on this session. And going to Pritam ji profile, Facebook profile, he has developed so many activities for the kids. I think if we are coming on to him, we'll be able to check out in a better way. So might be on that terms, parents can plan out something. As a parent, I'm very weak in this section, Pritam ji. So I think that way is the way to go forward. Yes,
thank you very much, Mr. Gupta. Actually, I really liked and appreciate the point of the entire family is now actually getting involved. That veil of separation that was there, that's actually going away. And which brings me actually to the next question, which I'll position to Mr. Sudhir Kukreja at this stage. Very interestingly, what Tijay ji mentioned, it focused on the role of technology even in taking care of the operative duties of teachers, like you mentioned, in terms of taking away a lot of the administrative stress. And perhaps one of the big critiques of technology in classrooms has also been that it's making us think in boxes because it's a binary that you think in, but a human life requires way more than that. So when we talk about this socio-emotional learning, and the role, perhaps the central role, we all realize it's the teacher who plays in it, the interaction that the teacher engages in the student with at this stage. There is a lot of conversation globally on how can technology, games, decision-making, simulations really help foster that element of socio-economic learning. Given the background, given that Credence is so strongly focused on experiential learning, on SEL, on values, how do you leverage the emergent technology that is there today to drive that social development element of this issue?
Thanks, Dipakshi, for this question. Thank you so much, APAC, for this opportunity. Good afternoon to all the audience and the panel members I have associated here. Coming to the question which you asked me here, and I'm going to pick up two threads out of one of your discourse and something that Tijay mentioned here, and something that you mentioned at the start of the session, that is technology, in a way a replacement, or is it a supportive aid? That's one. Two, is it a binary function? Is it something which is literally impacting, or maybe there are a lot of people across the world who talk about there being a negative impact of technology, or technology limiting us in boxes, or maybe, having that negative impact in terms of that socio-emotional learning process. I think it's a matter of perspective with which you want to look at the entire scenario. That's the first way I'd like to put it. Two, it's the way you implement this. So technology is a fabulous tool. Like Tijay mentioned at the start of this session, I think we, Pritam, Tijay and I are on a common panel, or maybe in some common panels across. Since the last 8 months, maybe this is the 4th or 5th time that we're meeting. And I believe it's something which is applicable to the classroom. It's something which is applicable to teachers. It's something which is applicable to families also. I'll give you a quick example. 2 days ago, I was traveling to Indore. I happened to visit a friend of mine. When I entered their drawing room, I saw, two of their kids sitting and playing Ludo on a game as basic as Ludo on a computer screen. And I was a little curious as to why would a child sit down on a, computer screen and play Ludo. And this friend of mine tells me that, we have a habit that every week or over a weekend, this friend of mine lives in Indore and his brother lives in US. So he's like, it's got nothing to do with COVID. It's got nothing to do with pandemic, nothing happening. But because my brother lives in US, his children are also 4, 5, 6 years of age. My children are also 4, 5, 6 years of age, but they barely meet once in a year. And therefore we made it a point that every week over the weekend, they have to play games online with each other so that at least they are in, touch with each other. They know that they have a sibling living abroad who's at that space, etc. And trust me, that one incident was so touching for me. And I was like, man, when did I connect with all of my cousins together and play together a game or something sitting? So it's not just about a syllabus which you're going to cover. It's about, leveraging technology to learn. It's about leveraging technology to connect. It's about leveraging technology to build relations. Look at this platform. Like I mentioned, we are interacting with each other. Maybe a year ago, I had never seen a face called Tijay Gupta. Today, I know who Tijay Gupta is. How does he look like? What are his thoughts? What are his expressions? Where does Pritam come from? What are his ideologies? We've explored business ideas and whatnot. So I think technology is a powerful tool, which certainly cannot be a replacement. That is something which is widely accepted, proven, talked about. But the moment you talk about technology being integrated into a system which enables exchange of ideas, which enables exchange of emotions, which enables exchange of thought processes, that is where I think technology's real might is something which can be exploited. Having said this, when we bring this to the classroom, I think that's where the challenges start coming in, whether it is the challenge of access, whether it is the challenge of resource planning, whether it is the challenge of availability of devices, whether it is ensuring a large masses. I think that's another challenge which all my fellow panelists would agree with, that if I am a teacher teaching 40 students, I think to keep an eye on those 40 students at the same time, maintaining the discipline, having those issues, not, kids are smarter these days, so they have come up with 10 ways in which they would probably want to, say that, okay, yes, they are present, but yet may or may not be. So I think those are the challenges where the technology needs intervention or needs certain evolution. There are a lot of edtech companies working towards it. How do you bring about that kind of interactivity where the teacher is not just giving a monotonous monologue, but at the same time making the interaction, mutual, where the kids are able to contribute, are able to talk to each other, are able to express themselves. They are, products and platforms where they are not even able to just speak up, but even design and write and draw together. So build presentations together, work on Excel sheets together. So I think these are, collaborative tools which are available in the form of collaborative technologies. So collaboration to me is the word which can lead to, adapting technology and leveraging the maximum potential out of it. So the teachers who have historically been, especially in a country like ours, which has a mix of schools which are extremely elite schools, and then we have schools which are operating in rural areas, or our government schools or BMC schools kind of structures. Across the board, we need, capacity building, we need teacher training, we need empowerment of these teachers to adopt these tools. And I think this pandemic has literally given a big push to this overall scenario. The velocity with which we've actually adopted technology, I think the teachers in our country deserve a great salute, to keep this entire educational system alive even against all the odds. Adopting technology is not easy. It really doesn't come natural to you at every age. Experimenting with a new app or a new device or a new, method of teaching. At an early age, maybe in your teenagers, we could adapt everything. But, the moment as you keep on growing older, I'll take my own example, early in the days of college or something, going to something like an Orkut was really easy. A transition to Facebook was another easier step. But today, if you ask me to go to something like an Instagram or something, I still find it difficult. So maybe aging up, probably that's something which is becoming a challenge, maybe first signs of aging. But yeah, I guess with age, this is what happens. You really don't keep pace with technology. And that's where the biggest challenge starts coming in. And therefore, you know, among our teachers, we've got people who are maybe very young first-time teachers, early graduates from B.Ed colleges, who are, I think, now being conditioned. I'm associated with a couple of B.Ed colleges as well, where I at times go and take some lectures. So for those kids who are coming in new, you know, embracing technology is very good. And I think that's something which is a very exciting time, because when these young kids will come in and start entering the classrooms of our government or private schools or whatever, I think these people would be able to bring in a new energy and a completely new, different dynamic environment as compared to what we had earlier. But having said this, I wouldn't want to demean the old ones also who have kept pace with the times, have adopted technology like crazy. I've got teachers who are 50, 55, 58 years of age in our system and have now learned how to operate Zoom, how to operate Google Classrooms, they're using apps, etc., etc. So these are the things I think which are making the entire scenario around us very exciting. Lastly, you know, when you talk about the socio-economic, social-emotional learning, I think the families play a big role in this overall scenario. We don't know what is going to be the scenario. Of course, we've heard of a couple of, you know, vaccines coming out, and probably we'll be back to a regular classroom, you know, sometime in the near future. But having said this, even when they are back to a normal schooling scenario, I think this is an advantage that we've got in the last 6-8 months of pandemic, which we should, as an education fraternity, capitalize on. Yes, we've been forced into embracing this technology. Yes, this is something which is mandated rather than being a choice. But now that we've experimented with it, now that we've experienced it completely and we've understood the power of it, I believe some elements of it are to be carried forward, to be integrated into our regular schooling system as well. You know, kind of related with, imagine, you know, today, for example, in this last 6 months, a lot of our schools have collaborated with schools internationally. They've collaborated with schools. So my Hyderabad school has collaborated with my school in Indore, and my school in Indore has collaborated with the school in Bangalore. And a lot of cross-school, inter-school connections have also taken place. So those collaborations have been, you know, enabled because of we being on a technology platform. If I could connect with a Pritam sitting in Bangalore and I'm sitting in Mumbai, why can't my teachers do that? Why can't my students do that? So that is something which has enabled, you know, exchange of ideas, exchange of even the pedagogy, methods of teaching, and bringing them all on a common platform, which I believe has empowered all of us. And there is no reason why we shouldn't really harness this entire power of technology, even when we are beyond pandemic. Maybe we might want to schedule, you know, our lesson plans or our weekly plans or our timetables in a way where we have a structured intervention of inter-school, interstate, inter-country, you know, or international interactions lined up. I mean, what could be a better approach than interacting with some children living in Africa or living in US or UK or Europe to understand their culture, to understand their festivals, to understand their pedagogy, to understand their geography and economics and whatnot. So I believe that is something which is the true power of, you know, technology. And that's, once that makes inroads into our regular schooling system, that's where I feel we'll be able to truly harness the potential of technology and then utilize it for bringing in far better results for our end and, you know, achieving better learning objective for our students.
Absolutely, very, very well put, Sudhir. For that matter, I think I'll take a cue from what you mentioned, especially around, you know, the innovative quotient of students. And I think that is where perhaps, you know, when even we talk about human-machine partnerships, perhaps that resilience or that the ability to question, the ability to be inquisitive, as much we can really talk or teach to our students, or, you know, in a way ingrain that. It can either be a nurture or a nature, but the nurture role in this case is just so massive that it would be really important to see how the entire ecosystem progresses from here, which actually, you know, very beautifully dovetails into the next part of the conversation, wherein, and I'll, you know, share a very quick snippet here. That is, so I am from Dell Technologies. It's one of the largest technology companies in the world today. When we thought about, what are the social impact goals that we are going towards? So one of the most important goals that we have set actually is fostering diversity and inclusion. Primarily because exactly what you said, that, those with access to technology, there would be a level of training that they go through. There would be a level of, there is already a level of privilege, if I may so, even though the idea is that it should be accessible to everybody, which is further going to create that rift, which is further going to, at times, expand that digital divide if we don't talk about diversity and inclusion today and now. Which brings me to Ms. Pratima Sinha. Ma'am, when I was going through your profile, one thing that really captured my fancy was theater for autistic children. Overall issues around teacher training, monitoring progress. When we talk about technology in the classroom today, and not just from an access standpoint, wherein, students who can have access vis-a-vis students who cannot have access, but even from the lens of, let's say, PWDs or students with learning disabilities. Or for that matter, even when we talk about a cadre of schools or a cadre of socioeconomic class where, at home, if there is access to one laptop or one smartphone, a boy child would be given preference over a girl child. We really can use technology in myriad ways to really create that inclusive and diverse education ecosystem. In your experience, how do you think technologies such as, whether it is basic devices or for that matter, more nuanced solutions that focus on artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, that can create a more equitable learning society? Thank you. Ma'am, you're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, APAC, for inviting me today, and good afternoon to all the panelists here. I'm so happy that Mr. Sudhir later on said that, even teachers who are 58 years of age are now adapting to technology, because I was getting worried on that matter. When he said only the youngsters who are coming up are the ones who are adapting to technology. But Sudhir sir, even we at this age, we are trying to adapt to the new norms and the new technology. And I feel that we have also grown a lot in that aspect. So I was like waiting, when are you going to say that? And when you said it, I said, thank God he said that. So with that note, Dipakshi, I would like to actually talk a little bit about autism. Because it's very close to my heart, and whenever I used to go for conferences and all, I used to always talk a little bit about autism. Please understand that autism in children is increasing rapidly, right? Many heads understand that, and they have taken a lot of steps, whether technological steps or otherwise, to deal with it. Lot of heads have still not adapted to this kind of inclusive education in their schools. That is okay, that's fine. But I have worked with children with autism with the intervention of theater as a therapy, theater and music as a therapy. And I have seen major changes happening in these children. See, the main aspect of the negative aspect, I would say, for autism is the social skills. These children, they do not know how to interact with others. They cannot connect with people. They cannot communicate with people, right? So that is where all of us, I would say, need to work on it and start connecting with them, coming up with new ways and means and different therapies to work with these autistic children. Now, when we come to technology related to that, there are a lot of case studies and there is a lot of research that is happening today, more in the Western society, in the Western side, about how to connect technology with autism. There are a lot of artificial intelligence, ML aspects which are actually being used to do these researches to find out more factors associated with autism. Also, let me tell you, with all these case studies that have happened, it has been found out that an autistic person or an individual, their interest is very strong towards technology. It is as same interest as a normal person shows. Okay, so nowhere in an autistic person is anywhere less in technology aspect. They showed a lot of interest. Now, when we are talking about a classroom scenario, augmented reality that we are seeing today, I would say it's a very, very good option for a child who's suffering or who has got autism, because the child is learning through reality, augmented reality. He doesn't have to go in a crowd. He doesn't have to be exposed to that kind of noise level, because these children, they get very hyper when there is a lot of noise, lot of commotion, and they cannot, accept a lot of people around in the crowd. So augmented reality in the classroom will really, really help the children. And also there are a lot of audio aids, visual aids that have come up, a lot of puzzles and games that have come up for these children. So I would say, of course, technology is very, very important for them, for children who I would say for inclusive education. Only aspect that I feel, and that may not be possible is the social skills of these children. Development of the social skills. So that is where I think we have to really work more on it. How can we develop the social skills in children who are, suffering from disabilities? So that's the only aspect I find that maybe technology, maybe, in future, like technology is moving rapidly, it is moving very fast. So maybe I'm just hoping that something will come up where we can say, yes, this particular thing will help the children, autistic children, to, socialize, that they can develop the skills, social skills. Of course, there's something called ECHOS methodology that has come in, and which is talking about a multidisciplinary skills for these children. And it tells about, it is combining the psychological development of the child along with the artificial intelligence, along with art forms, and also, the computer-human interaction, right? So this is what is coming out for inclusive education through technology. And I would really feel that, if we work, I'm sure in another 10 years, we will be somewhere very close to working with them through technology. Now, when it comes to teachers, when it comes to classroom inclusive education, there are a lot of, I remember when I used to take training earlier for teachers, it used to be a 3-day program in a physical, scenario. But now I have concised that 3 days program to maybe 2 hours program, right? So that is what technology is coming into the picture. So a 3 days program can be concised to just a 2-hour session, right? That is one beauty of it. And the other day, I was sitting in a demo for interactive panels, because, now every school wants to upgrade and bring in more interactive panels into their schools and all. What advancement in technology, that has come in. I mean, it's really amazing. Earlier, I remember 10 years back, that stylus used to be like we didn't know how to use it. In fact, children were better. They used to switch on the web camera and kept the stylus on the teacher's table, and that's where the teachers used to use it. But now it's become like a beautiful tool for the teacher to use it, the interactive panels. I was sitting there and remembering how we used to teach. For biology, we used to draw each and every diagram on the board, and that is how we used to teach. But it is all there. You just have to click on it, and the whole diagram comes with the flow of blood, and everything is seen so clearly, the heart beating and everything. So that is how the technology has developed. That is how the inclusiveness of technology is coming and has become a reality into our lives. It has slowly and steadily seeped in, but in last few months, of course, it is not slowly and steadily seeped in. It has definitely, rushed into our classroom and into our homes. So that is what I feel, and I would like to, talk. I mean, that is my observation.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think very, very insightful, especially the role that technology, especially augmented reality, is having on the lives of autistic children. I had read something about it. I did not know about it in a lot of detail, but you have sparked so much curiosity that I think that's definitely one of the next areas I'm going to deep dive and learn about. Thank you so much for sharing that. And on that one, and especially, more on a personal note, like you mentioned, in biology, when all the diagrams have always been terrible with arts. So perhaps my favorite diagram was that of an amoeba cell, because there's no structure, you can just draw it and you can still get full marks. But on that note, let me move next to Mr. Pritam Agarwal. So what we were discussing right now, of course, from the lens of diversity, from the lens of access to the kind of learning that every child should have exposure to. The national education policy has been, I would say it has really been a path breaker when it comes to focus on the change in school structure from 10+2 to the 3+2+2+4. And there, when there is massive focus on early childhood and education, when, you have been a massive advocate for early childhood and learning. You have been a veteran in this field. And despite that, we know that today also not every child has access to quality or a consistent quality of ECCE. How do you see in your experience that, teachers can actually become more effective in sparking this curiosity? Because the foundational age by the end of it, as many researchers also point out, most of the learning and most of our character really gets settled or really gets defined in those foundational stages. What is your approach? What would be your advice to the panel?
Dipakshi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on this platform. So obviously, see, I will not talk about the government, what policies they have and what kind of access they have been able to give it to the young kids, as you are talking about the early childhood care and education, right? But I'll try to summarize in a point or two, right? So it is how I say that I'm very new to this industry. Let's say not very new or very old. Let's say my 15 years of experience, and where we have Tijay, we have different brand owners. Because of their hard work, because of their vision that they will bring that early childhood education to India, right? A 20-25 years industry, which is like preschool industry or the early childhood industry. In terms of private sector, which has really done a remarkable job, that has forced the government of India, the Ministry of Education, to make this preschool compulsory right now. So let's talk about this is how the vision of educators who has really seen that during the first 6 years, right, that intelligence, that brain which is developing impacts a lot of educational, I'll say a lot of educational inputs and output, which is really given it to these kids, making a lot of differences in the childhood, the child's education life cycle, right? Now, if you're talking about the government perspective of this Anganwadis, these midday meals, right? This is all like vote banks, or they really wanted to bring something not very futuristic, I'd say. It has been taken over, like say 5 decades or 6 decades by this government to bring the ECCE, right? And which is making compulsory right now. So obviously the compulsory makes again the vision of 2030, that by 2030 they want to bring everybody on the school system, right? So that is again another 10 years we are really planning. So Obviously, the presence of the early learning centers, all the private players, and what is with my information, what I have, the industry of pre-primary schools or primary schools, which is almost only 20% which is organized, right? So Dipakshi, when we are talking about a 20% which is organized, so this industry again has got another 80% to reach. Now, after making it compulsory, I made sure that the next 5 years, if this private players has given an option, given an leverage to work, right? So that next, I'll say a 1.5 lakh crore industry, which is like now, as far as the Google says with lot of research agencies, the preschool sector is almost a 30 crore industry, growing at a rate of 30%. But I can see this growth in next 5 years itself. So obviously, when we are making it compulsory, there will be a lot of entrants and a lot of schools. And yes, it will definitely reach to each and every child in the country. And yes, with the government initiative that they will bring education to these Anganwadis apart from the midday meals. I've already seen changes. I'm already hearing it out from the government departments. I myself as an educator, I myself as into toys and books and supplies, I've been able to see that there is a lot happening in the government sector, that these Anganwadis have been now given teachers training in terms of education. They have been given toys. They have been planned for curriculums. They have been able to give some play equipments where the kids will not only come for midday meals, that nutrition factor. Now there is something called a nutrition to education as a factor coming back to these Anganwadis. So that is one part. Now, second part is a lot of things already discussed by Tijay, Madam and Sudhir. When these kids, I'll tell you, these kids have really enjoyed this online. Whenever we're talking about this space, right? These people have the first people, I'll say this is the generation, the early childhood, child, they have enjoyed this online education to the maximum extent. Earlier for these people, it was only the cartoon networks, right? Online, which is a one-way interaction or giving information, right? But now they have seen and they were excited that I'm able to see my friend online. I'm able to interact with him. And my friend is there on the screen. This is not that Chota Bheem which is there on the screen, right? So yes, there are a lot of things which has really come up. And with this early education, yes, there were some, as Madam said, a lot of social interaction was some issues and a lot of connectivity, rural, urban teachers. And I'll tell you one thing very, very important, which is very, I'm getting a very positive feedbacks from the teacher side, that these preschool teachers, right? Preschool teachers they are the all-rounders. They are not the subject teachers. They are the student teachers I'm talking about. They are the child's teacher, right? And they have adopted, as they are very instant in the classrooms, because these are all young kids. So similarly, these all-rounder teachers had adopted even this technology into a very faster way, right? I know a lot of technology was being used in the school space, but when it belongs to a preschool, where a lot of social interaction and one-to-one interaction was there, but now with this technology, these teachers had done a remarkable job by adopting this technology to as quickly as what they used to do answers to these small queries, right? These young minds, when they used to have queries, a teacher has to be very instant, right? So similarly, they have used this technology also. And with the technology in place, with the research in place, and how we have been able to see what is happening across the globe, what is happening in the US, what is happening in the European countries, what the best practices has been adopted. And yes, the schools has been able to connect the children, which is able to engage the child, which is live, which is interactive, which has taken the physical part of it and even the social part of it. So that is what and to a small young child, and when we are really talking about Tijay, he has given a very clear examples how the student has leverages technology in the classroom. Sudhir talks about the cross classes, and Madam talks about the inclusion part. I have one liner which is very, very important. The Google content, right, which is into the text form, right? it was being used as a massive tool for technology, right? For the student into the schools. Now that Google content library has now shifted to a human libraries. Now people are able to connect as human voices, as human in person, right? Anywhere in the world, any classes from any schools, any teachers from any part of the world, right? So the Google text content has taken over as a human library right now with the voice and the person himself. So which is a very, very big, what you call as gift during this pandemic to the children. And yes, Tijay already talked about the collaborativeness, the content, the community. Even you have discussed about the community and capacity building of the kids, which has increased.
Thank you so much for that. That's very helpful, actually, you know, to kind of bring the discussion, actually, the whole 9 yards, because while, of course, we always talk about technology enablement in senior classes or middle school onwards, the point you make is really important about how immersive can technology actually become even from the early ages, provided, of course, it is under the right supervision. At this point, there are 2 questions that have come from the audience. The first one being, in the new world order, how significant role or what would be the role that technology is going to play in imparting education from the lens of global competitiveness? Any takers who would want to address this question? Mainly, where can technology help the Indian students find that valid place in the global competition? Please, Sudhir.
I'll take it. Yeah, so I think the question is quite relevant to the edtech part of the technology which I was talking about. If you look at the context of global competition, and if you look at the way, various global edtech companies have entered into education sector in India and maybe every possible country in the world. It's not just India. We are observing India very closely. But I believe, if you talk about people like Coursera's, people of edX of the world, or you talk about Upgrad, you name a product, and I think, today it's only because of the technology, it is possible for you and me to sit in this classroom or respective offices that we are sitting in, and maybe sit right here and attend a lecture of a professor who's great at a global thought process or perspective, sitting in Harvard University in US or maybe in Oxford University in London, and listen to their ideas. So I think that's one change which has come up now. Apparently, when I was in college, all this was not possible. If I had to study in Harvard University, I have to cross a million miles and then reach there and spend my life there. So that barrier is already broken. I mean, it's no longer mandatory for us to be there, physically to attend a great lecture. That's one. 2, a very important component of any learning, any global perspective is to have a peer group learning. And I believe technology has enabled that as well. Look at what we're doing right now. We have 6 people sitting across 6 different cities and exchanging ideas. Now, these 6 cities can be anywhere across the globe, maybe on a different planet as well. That's also possible thanks to the technology. So I think technology has given great, impetus and a big push to global competition, global collaboration, and global, coordination among each other. So it's not just about the competitiveness, it's more about the collaborativeness, which is going to yield much better results for us. Yes, there is competition, etc., to be a participant, to take part in. But I think collaboration is much, much more, important and a much bigger outcome of technology advancements across the globe, which has led to world becoming, when we were talking about globalization, we talked about world becoming one market. I think with technology, world has become one learning platform. And that, to me, is the biggest advantage of technology intervention.
Can I add on to what Mr. Sudhir said? So he's talking about a very wider aspect of it. I will get down to the minor aspect of it, in the sense that, today the schools are holding competitions for schools across the world for students, right? So there's a debate competition happening. So it's not only about competitions per se. It's also about the exposure that everybody is getting. When we used to be in conferences. Now we are in conferences where teachers across the world are getting into it. So that is where, well, as Sudhir said, that collaboration is very important, connectivity is very important, and that brings in the exposure to understand the other's culture, the other's attitude, how to go about, how to keep ourselves abreast to what is happening across the world. So this has really become extremely important, and it is happening today. Even competitions between the teachers. I've been jury members of these kind of competition. There was just recently a teacher competition between the teachers on writing lesson plans. So which has never ever happened earlier, these kind of things. So definitely the world is coming very close together now.
Thank you for that matter. And something that we at Dell did over the last year, we realized that very often whenever I'm part of the policy advocacy team. So as a global team, we thought that very often the feedback that the end consumer has on a policy making scenario has often been missed. So when the national education policy was in deliberation, we actually held a competition for teachers across India, and over 700 teachers, which was phenomenal. We never expected that scale of teachers to come forward and participate. They came forward with not just their suggestions, but also potential hacks on, if they were in the administrative shoes, or if they were in the government's shoes, or if, they were in the parents' shoes, how could they really come about with an answer? And the discussions were very interesting. And actually, well, there's one more question from the audience. So I'll put a follow-up question to you on that. And this is something that, I'm picking up that came from the policy hack, and something related to what both you and Pratima ji spoke about. I think the benefit of technology in really building capacity, scale, capability, I think that case is given. You, of course, need smarter minds to think about, how can you balance the various elements on it. And if you were to put your equity analyst hat on, when we talk about, investment in technology, very often schools struggle with the question, do I invest in labs? Do I invest in academics? Do I invest in human resources? Do I invest in technology? And I think all are very valid questions. If you were to leave the audience with, let's say, 2 or 3 parameters on which you feel that, if you're in technology, these 2 or 3 capacity building questions, or these 2 or 3 parameters about, what would those be? Where you can say that my investment is worthwhile.
Dipakshi, I missed your last line. There was some disturbance in between. If you could just repeat your last line.
Sure. I was saying that, if, let's say, for the benefit of the people who are hearing this panel, when we talk about that, there is such a massive amount that goes into tech upgradation of, a school, especially the brownfield schools, if not the greenfield schools. If you have to think about, how can I, at the end of the day, think that, okay, that investment was worth it because it gave me this return. What would be those 2 or 3 parameters of figuring out that this is good return on investment?
Well, I guess the other 3 co-panelists that I have on this panel, I'm sure each one of us has already, so it's not just my equity background, which, apparently will make me qualified to answer this question. But I'm sure Pratima ma'am, Tijay, Pritam, each one of us have already done this analysis of return on investment in terms of our technology across our schools, what will give us the maximum ROI. So whether it is, one among us who's operating a chain of schools, or is it an individual school owner who's operating a school, or is it a simple principal deciding or recommending its school management on which technology to go for and which not? I think, today the question is really not about which technology to, invest in. It's about how do you choose the right technology, what will make the right difference. Because as a school leader and a technology enthusiast, the way I look at it, especially at the school level, maybe at an engineering level and stuff like that, it'll probably be a far more sophisticated technology, etc. But at least at the school level, the technology intervention that we have, whether it is in terms of, tools to teach, whether it is in terms of content to teach, whether it is in terms of, interactivity tools, etc. And I'm not sure if you like my answer as a Dell representative here. But thanks to corporations like Dell, Google, Microsoft, etc., The way I look at it as a school leader, I think 80 to 85% of the technology that we need in the school is available for free. Whether you talk about Apple program for schools, whether you talk about Google for Education, whether you talk about Microsoft Schools, Adobe, and any of those products, 80% of the technology tools that you need inside a school classroom or on a school campus are available for free. Having said this, I'm not saying that everything that's free is good or we should look for only for free solutions. That's where I kept that 20% for. So that 20% is something which you need to very creatively and at the same time very thoughtfully invest. It has to be in terms of the content that you get. So again, content today, you go to Google, you go to YouTube. I think there was a time when we paid for 2D animations to companies like EduComp across the country, every school. But that may or may not be the scenario today. You name a topic and you probably have those animations available free of cost across any of those platforms. But then it's gone beyond that. Like Pratima ma'am was sharing, today you've got AR and VR kind of technology, which are definitely emerging technologies, which are definitely high on investments. And the innovators, the people who are building these technologies definitely need to be rewarded and, kind of paid for those kind of services. And the sooner the schools can probably adopt it, the better it would be for the entire ecosystem. At the same time, for the people who are developing these technologies, they have to keep this in mind that we are a country which is, operating education in a very, very highly, I would say, restricted and moderated manner. We have a lot of government intervention and restrictions to take care of. Given an option, I would probably want to bring in 100 new technology tools in my classroom and ask my parents or customers to pay for it, but that really doesn't happen. There are laws governing that we cannot increase the fees at a certain level, this, that, and all, and that is what has apparently, limited the ability of the school managements to go beyond a certain limit to bring in technology. So we have to phase it out year on year, and those are the parameters I think which any school leader will have to consider, when you're choosing any technology for your school.
Absolutely, and I think on dovetailing on the last part of the question, especially around the use of AI, VR, and AR. I'm going to pull in the next audience question, and Tijay, if I can address this to you, given that yes, Pritam.
I think Pritam has something to add here.
Yeah.
Dipakshi, this is for all the audiences. As for me, I'll just tell you, as Sudhir said, we have been using technology, we are listening, it is available right now, but there are some points to be considered. So there are four parts of this technology in terms of marketing, technology in terms of classroom, technology in terms of teachers, technology in terms of management. That is how we have to prioritize which technology at what level. That is the first. Second thing is the cost, what is involved to a school. As Sudhir said, it is free, it is paid, whatever it is this technology is futuristic? Am I going to use this technology just for next 2 months, how people have rushed in the month of March, April, or it is really we are going to use it for next 1 or 2 years or 3 years as per the requirements of your content, your videos, your teachers, your students, your classroom. That is very, very important. We have all rushed to this without seeing the futuristic uses of this technology, right? Rushing was that, don't go very deep initially, understand, go slowly, watch what everybody is getting, get the feedback, how people have used it, how teachers are finding it, how parents are comfortable, then only we should use this. Otherwise, same Zoom platform, right? Everybody talked about some news in the initial days. Moving from one technology to other takes months of time to adapt. We have to understand this part. It is not a minute which we can, because you have to train your staff, you have to train your teachers, you have to ask your student, you have to ask your parents. Do not rush to use these technologies.
Fantastic points made, Pritam, I think, and that change management in itself is such a massive issue. And even from technological organizations, I would say, while they might have it easier, but they also really focus on change management, because by the end of it, technology is just an enabler. The end result has to be driven by what you have just mentioned. Thank you for that. Tijay, if I could share the next audience question that was there. completely. And from, you know, where we started around academics, around technology, around the information parity, the question is that, can AI, virtual reality, augmented reality replace the traditional methods of teaching completely? Or how will the coexistence of a teaching and in the traditional and the new way, how do you think that is going to evolve?
Of course, you can't replace a main actor to a supporting actor. It is something like that. You need a supporting actor and actor both to run a movie. This is something like that. We need both the things. If that happens, I think Pritam ji or me, we don't have any role in the schools. Technology can't run the school completely. But yes, there's a support tool, it can help it out. Coming back to the back point, like last time, the last question, Pritam ji and Sudhir ji were discussing something. I'll just share a simple example or share a simple quote with you. Last year we went to South Korea, and in South Korea airport, I've never seen that. South Korea airport, we have the robots who will come to the terminal and will guide you to the main gate. So I have my wife with us and my kids with us. So the first question my wife asked, isn't it good if you have maids like this? In India, there's a problem with the maid. If you have robotic maids, how easy the life would be. So of course, technology is a part of that, but how that maid is going to replace a physical maid, or how that maid is going to make a tasty food for you. So of course, we need a physical maid, but yes, we can have a robotic maid just to for the cleaning of floors or just to do our basic duties. But for cooking the food, we need a physical maid or we need some manpower. So that is how technology can't be replaced, but as a optional tool, it can be used. So I don't agree with the fact that 100% can be replaced. Of course, the teachers are there to stay, the schools are going to stay. We can't be like America, or we can't be like China, where technology is much more dependent as compared. I think at least for next 15, 20 years, we need for that.
Completely agree with you. For that matter, you know, on that note, and I was just curious on that choice of word, that of course it would just be an alternate, but I strongly believe, and you know, as somebody who's worked in the education sector, of course, in different forms, in entrepreneurial form, and academics, and now from a policy perspective, I think while technology, of course, will be optional, but you know, using that for your professional development would no longer be an optional thing. Otherwise, when we even talk about redundance, I think it's equally important to figure out the redundance of the middle-aged teachers today. Like what Pratima ji mentioned at the opening of her address around, you know, we have to also look at the resilience of the older teachers, the middle-aged teachers, who are really taking technology in their realm, and you know, from a lifelong learning perspective, how are they really focused on making a difference? So I'll take this question to you, Pratima ji, in terms of you know, the entire quotient around teacher training today. When we talk about teacher training, of course, you know, we have been discussing this, that you know, it's the resistance to change is much stronger there than with students or with, let's say, the parents, because they want. How do we really equip teachers also from a resilience perspective? How do we equip teachers even from a softer skill perspective to be able to use technology in the realm? And for the other panelists, once ma'am is done, in case you want to add something onto this, please feel free to. I think this is a relevant question for everybody across the board. Pratima.
So what I have observed and what I've seen, Dipakshi, is a teacher, you know, is very resilient otherwise also. Okay, and she or he, a teacher, has really, whatever may happen, whatever challenges may happen, they rise up to the occasion. Okay, so they are, what I have seen is initially we had Zoom and then we moved to Microsoft Teams and so on and so forth. But it was like pure learning from them, for them. They were talking to each other, they were learning from each other, they were learning from, you know, finding out, researching. And now I feel they are too good in using technology in teaching, right? So it is there to stay. Technology is there to stay. I mean, we cannot say redundance or whatever it is going to happen. Today, teaching, what it is actually moved 10 years forward. So if the teachers do not change, right, then they will become dinosaurs, right? So this is what we have been actually talking to the teachers, we have been motivating them. And I don't think so I needed to motivate the teachers so much, because they were all very self-motivated. They realized that this is what is the need of the hour, this is what is required from their side, and they have moved forward. They are actually dealing with 21st century students. So if they do not become 21st century teachers, then they need to just sit back at home, right? So this is what an understanding was between us, between the teachers and the management and everybody. So this is how it was taken forward. And I felt that, you know, the teachers have really, really risen up to the challenge. Seriously, very, very seriously.
Very beautifully put. Completely agree with you. Anybody from, yes, please go ahead, Sudhir.
I'll add something here, ma'am, and I think this will something, will be a little pleasing to my initial remarks that I shared. So I think Pratima ma'am would appreciate this. I had a teacher who was almost 58 years of age, a Marathi teacher based in a city called Aurangabad, and she was a beautiful poet. So there was a day when she actually showed me a lot of her collection of poems written in Marathi. Now I don't understand Marathi, so I couldn't really make a lot of sense of what she had written, but the sheer fact that she had a collection of more than 500, poems written in Marathi, and they were such a beautiful collection. And I'm going to relate it to what Dipakshi asked here in terms of teacher training. You know what's needed here, and I'm also connecting it to the motivation part of the teacher here. I think more than the training. So what I agree with Pratima ma'am here is that teachers don't need training. What you need is probably a slight bit of guidance, and maybe in some parts of the country, some guidance or some motivation. Especially if you're sitting in Bombay, Delhi and stuff like these kind of cities, teachers are seeing how the world is evolving every day. But the moment you go to cities like Aurangabad, Indore, Devas, the smaller cities where we are located in a couple of schools, the teachers don't have that much of exposure. So what is needed is to expose them, number one, to give them slight bit of motivation to adopt a certain technology. So this lady that I'm talking about at 58 years of age, she did not know how to type. Forget about doing anything else on technology. She did not know how to type on a computer. With a little bit of motivation and some bit of hand-holding and guidance, I made her sit with my computer teacher and stuff like that. We ended up creating a blog for her. And you'll be surprised to know today she's got more than 1,500 Marathi poems on her blog with more than 1 lakh followers, which is unbelievable. And that is what she enjoys the most. So that's what is needed. 2 points here. One is a bit of motivation. 2, in terms of technology, is the ease of usage. It's the sheer usage ease of that blog which is made her. So she had to just type, upload and leave it. That's it. After that, she built her own audience, commenting on it, exchanging ideas, etc., etc. And and then slowly she started sharing it on Facebook, then Twitter, then Instagram and whatnot. At her age, that's where exactly that adoption of technology led to that complete transformation in a lady who came to me saying that I don't know how to type.
Fantastic.
I go back to the same thing. Age is not a factor for learning. We are learners forever.
Absolutely not. So it's not motivation level, I think, which makes you do anything and everything in life. And that's true for technology.
That passion inside you, that passion to learn, do something more, something new, that is what keeps you going.
Absolutely, yes.
We are almost at the end of the hour. We have about a minute to go. But I just wanted to close it also, on a very pertinent question, on a very pertinent direction that Pritam had shared earlier around, when you think about investing in technology and the changes. How are schools today, especially the schools who are embracing technology, thinking about the data privacy, the data protection, the child data aspect of it? Because by the end of it, a lot of this data can be used. Big data. It can actually be used to draw inferences. Where is it? How are schools really going about the security element of it? And I'd open this question both to Pritam and to Tijay, given that we have been discussing on similar lines. And let's be mindful. We probably have 2 minutes, so 1 minute each. And if we can close it on that note.
So I'll start it first. I'm audible.
Yes.
I'll start it first. What we have done in our case, we have minimized data collection for student. When we launched the app or the homeschooling app, or you can say the hybrid schooling, we have just controlled the data on the basis of email ID given to the student. There's no data asked in terms of parents, their contact numbers, their income, or blah blah blah, as you've seen in the apps. Because that we are not a marketing app, we are basically a teaching app. So we have minimized the data at every sense, whether it would be filling up a form, whether it would be going for the test. You can hardly see 2 or 3 columns in our app. Secondly, whatever data we are getting, we have tried to purge, or we have tried to substantiate the difference between the relevant data and irrelevant data. Say a student is filling up a form just to get the library book, or just to get a e-library access. So what is the data which is required for me in future, and what is the data I need to trash? So trash and keeping the data goes side by side. Encryption at some levels we have done, yes, in terms of financial records, in terms of their other records or some private record, we have encrypted the data. Most important principle we followed is the least and the minimum privilege data. What is the least privilege of data? That is, I think, the most important concept of this game. Whenever we changes our phone, or whenever we changes our laptop, we try to transfer the whole data or whole information from the phone. But practically, when you change your phone, I think you hardly need your phone book and maybe a few photos. But you always take a 64 GB to 120 GB and 128 to 256 GB. We need to understand what is important and what it's not important enough, or maybe same kind of information flow. So I think these are the ways which we follow. I think Pritam can throw a quick light on that.
And Pritam, I'll just highlight, we are 2 minutes above time. So if you could keep it, let's say, to a quick.
As Tijay correctly said that we have to use the minimize whenever you are using a third party, what you call a technology, right? Technology from others. So let's reluctant only to the, see, as he said very clearly, I will take this word from Tijay today. This is a teaching platform for us right now. So forget about as on this pandemic time, we were supposed to connect to the children for types of education. Let's be very clear. Let it be only for a teaching part. We are not collecting any other data. Yes, we have taken care of that part. Now coming and securing a lot of IDs, passwords, right? You have to change it very frequently, right? You have to change it very frequently so that your daily, see, it was even for my own child's school and even our schools. We do not have one ID and password for throughout the week. So it is almost like there is a small group app which gets the new ID and the password for the parents every day. So a lot of small things can make a lot of solution to your safety of your data. And yes, we have been very difficult initial days when we had a lot of news for Zoom. Friends, it is to be very important that we are not live streaming live for the classrooms, which is to be very safe. As a training, yes, but as a student, no. Do not live streaming your sessions online on Facebook or this and that. Second is, whenever you are using this part, so you do not have a recording options. So do not give any recording options at the parent's end and the child's end. It should be a visual part only. Second is, if you can take a small, understanding from the parent to be signed, which was a digital, which we have taken it, that it is not to be shared digitally or any WhatsApp, or you have to do not share the link with anyone. That part we have also taken a as a signature from the parents, that do keep it safe as much as possible, because it is your child which we need to safeguard.
Great. Thank you so much. Very insightful. And thank you very much for everybody for participating. I think we did cover a lot of ground in the discussion today. We covered all the possible elements. Sudhir, sorry for the 4-minute delay, but back to you. Thank you so much, everybody.
That's absolutely fine. Dipakshi, it was a holistic discussion, which is very essential, in fact. For this, I would like to thank you, Dipakshi, for wonderfully moderating, covering all the aspects, and all the panelists have very well reverted back with the answers to the questions and queries. So I would like to thank Dipakshi for this, for wonderfully moderating, and also our esteemed panelist, Pratima Sinha ji, CEO for DSR Educational Society. Thank you, Pratima ji. And also Pritam Kumar Agarwal, founder and director, Riverstone International. Thank you. And Sudhir Kukreja, co-founder and CEO, Credence International Schools. Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. And also Tijay Gupta, co-founder and COO, BACHPAN and AHPS Group of Schools. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thanks for joining us, and looking forward to connect in the coming days. Thank you.